Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we are gonna be just me. Sorry, you're stuck with me. It's gonna be that kind of day. But don't worry, chat, because it's still gonna be really fun. We have I'm really excited about this. PlanetScale dropped this super cool database driver for JavaScript. It's a serverless database driver, and it works for Netlify Edge Functions. And as we know, PlanetScale also has this really cool idea of portals where you can like deploy your database to different regions around the globe. So this gets us pretty dang close to something that I've been really excited about, which is databases that actually live closer to your users. So without having to let's just take a moment and reflect on how freaking cool it is that we can now go to, okay, look at this. This is cool. All right, so I gotta gather my thoughts here because we got something pretty exciting going on. We've got front-end developers, what we would traditionally call front-end developers, who are now able to go to the PlanetScale UI, click a button, get a database. Okay, so no database provisioning. You don't have to be a DB admin. You don't have to figure out how to lock down permissions on a server, set up firewalls, all these things that you used to have to do, right? So, okay, one problem solved. As a front-end developer, click a button, get a database. All right, now you've got the next problem, which is global availability. You want something that is, if I'm in the United States, I want to write to my database quickly. And typically that works well in the United States because a lot of databases are located in one of the AWS centers like US East 1, which means that it's pretty fast. But if I'm in Australia, I'm still writing to US East 1 for a lot of database providers, and data transfer is limited, not just to network latency, but also to like the straight up speed of light. It takes like 100 milliseconds for something to get around the world. So you've got automatic latency built in when you are deploying your databases far away from your users. Okay, so PlanetScale solves that. They let us say we can make our databases multi-region. All right, another problem. All I had to do is click a button, and now I am a front-end developer, but I've just deployed a database that is scaled and secure, right? Awesome. All right, now I need to actually get access to that database in my applications, which traditionally would have gone to a back-end engineer. But because we got the serverless driver, we're going to be able to just import a package and put in our username and password that we'll get from the PlanetScale database or from the dashboard. And then we can just query stuff from our database. So this is really powerful stuff because you are not, if you are building on the modern tools out there today, you are not a front-end developer anymore. You're a web developer, and you are absolutely capable of building full stack apps. And you don't have to become an expert in a lot of deep different areas. And I think that's so freaking cool because it really points to this idea that the learning curve has changed, right? Like I think when we were building websites back in the day, in 2003, when I was first getting into websites, you were kind of like the front end was a very specific thing. And then all of the things that happened that were dynamic were like in a PHP server, you had to figure out how to deploy Apache or get Nginx configured or, whatever those things were, right? And then you're provisioning virtual private servers, a VPS, right? Or you are using shared hosting and dealing with FTP, and you just kind of started getting into all of these back-endy things, and then it started getting more confusing. All right, now Docker containers or Kubernetes or all of these things, and like we can figure all this stuff out, right? This is our job. We work in tech. We can learn anything, but the problem is that as these capabilities scaled out, it was too many things. Even with a lifetime of study, the likelihood that you can learn everything you need to know about DNS, everything you need to know about Kubernetes, everything you need to know about security, everything you need to know about networking, and also learn all the things about CSS and HTML and accessibility and JavaScript, and the list just goes on and on and on, right? But then with the introduction of these tools, with the introduction of things that give us all of these, these capabilities, all we need to really know is HTML, CSS, the accessibility that comes along with writing good HTML and CSS, and then you just need to know JavaScript. Because if you learn the JavaScript, you can use APIs to access all of these software as a service, database as a service, platform as a service, edge functions, serverless functions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now you're writing full stack apps. You are a full stack developer with a front end skill set. So, I'm not even saying front end, back end anymore. We're just web developers. We build web experiences. And this is, coming at a good time because as of 2020, we saw the whole world move online, and we needed those. Like what we used to do, where we would go to a website that would direct you to a storefront, or go to a website that was kind of like the banner that they would wave before you came in and met somebody in person. That's just not true anymore, right? The vast majority of web experiences are like the whole experience. Your whole business is a website now. When I go to my bank, like I've never been to a branch of any of the banking institutions that I use. I went to their website, I signed up through the website, I uploaded an ID to verify my identity, I hooked it up to a different account, I transferred money through, and now all I have is the web experience, the dashboard for those accounts. I've literally never seen a person. I don't know if anybody works there. It could be a completely automated system. I would have no idea because the only way I interact with it is through the web experience. So front-end developers being in this position where we have so much power because of tools, not because we're like suddenly studying more and more things, but because the learning curve is flattening. The accessibility to these tools, our access to build really complex experiences, is requiring a narrower and narrower skill set, because amazing things like PlanetScale and these other tools are out there giving us the ability to build more powerful experiences without having to become experts in every single vertical out there. Right. So anyways, all of that is preamble because it's why I'm so excited. It's why I wanted to put this on the calendar to go and play with this. Before we get into that, how the heck are you, chat? How you been? I'm seeing lots and lots of cool things in the chat here. People shouting out at FileZilla, cute FTP, Jacob Boulder with the sub. Thank you very much. We got lots of some familiar faces. Ben, thank you for the sub. Kubiti, thank you for being here. New intro, Relic Bars, what up? Thank you for showing up to the stream. Who else is here today? Nikki, what's up, Nikki? Got all sorts of folks in here. So you know what? I'm good. I'm good. Doing great. What's up, Alan? Yeah, I'm like, this is an exciting week for us. And little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, like pay attention because tomorrow's actually going to be a big day. Really excited for what we're launching at Netlify, but that's not what today's about. Today is about databases and building cool experiences with those databases. So chat, who here has tried PlanetScale? Anybody actually given it a spin? And while y'all are thinking, we see, yeah, Alan's done a little bit of PlanetScale. I'm going to actually look up, we've got at least one episode on PlanetScale here. Let's see, we've got, yeah, here we go. Here's a whole collection that currently just has our one episode in it, where Taylor from the PlanetScale team came and taught us how to set them up. And today is going to be sort of evolving on that. All right, yeah. We've got a few people, Sassy Codes. We've got a couple people who are considering it, looking at the Jacob on the to-do list. Yeah, the Chris and the Rust Adventures. For folks who are curious about Rust Adventure, you can go check that out if you want to learn about Rust. That is a great tool. Yeah, let's see. You know what? We're not gonna waste any time. We're gonna jump right into this because I think it's a really exciting episode and I want to have a lot of time. So let's jump over into solo programming. And what I'm gonna do is first and foremost, I'm gonna give a shout out to our captioning. We have Rachel here with us today, taking down all these words. Thank you very much, Rachel, from Whitecoat Captioning. And that's made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, and New Relic, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I very much appreciate. And we are talking today about PlanetScale. Let me get PlanetScale. Is it .com? It is. All right, so here's PlanetScale. And let's get that. Um, AMDev, yes, it is shiny objects. Now, here's the thing that I will say, because I do want people to understand that, like, there are a lot of things moving in the front end landscape, in the web development landscape, and it can cause a lot of FOMO. Here's what I'll say though. We're seeing a couple macro shifts that, if you understand the macro shift, you can be comfortable not having to try every single tool, because they're all working toward a similar set of pain points. And you can then, when you have one of those pain points, start assessing tools within the shift, rather than having to try each one, right? So there are a few things that are happening right now. We had a big shift a few years back toward precompile everything and ship only static assets. This was due to limitations in what was out there. We had CDNs, and that was roughly it, right? Otherwise, you were managing and scaling servers. There was a lot of overhead to this. People were getting, big AWS bills, or you were managing something like DigitalOcean or Linode or something like that, all of which are great services. But when you're running a website, it's not the most pleasant thing to do, to have to, like, I want to update my front end. All right, well, let me SSH into this server that I manage and, like, pull the Git changes and like rebuild and restart the site. That's not really a fun way to operate. So instead, what we would prefer to do is push everything to Git and get it compiled down to a static asset, ship it to a CDN. Great, global scale, everything's good. All right, so that was the thing that we were doing. That was the Jamstack, right? But the idea of the Jamstack was getting away from this coupling to a server where, the services don't require you to log in and manage a VPS or deal with Kubernetes or whatever. And then things started getting introduced. So we have this kind of like serverless and an edge-based thing. So this is the first macro shift, is serverless and edge. We've seen serverless get more capable. We've got multi-region, we've got faster cold starts, we've got things like on Netlify, we've introduced background functions and scheduled functions and a lot of capabilities that make serverless, for a large subset of server-based applications, serverless can actually fill in and just eliminate the need for those. And because with services like Netlify and others, you can create a folder, put your serverless functions in there, and just deploy it automatically whenever you push to Git without having to configure the routing, the proxying, the DNS, the API gateways, all those things that you'd have to configure if you're managing this personally. It's now way more approachable to do that. Okay, so edge functions are a similar idea. We'll get a little bit more into the subtleties of that. But the general idea is that, like, serverless functions happen at a data center and edge functions happen at the actual edge, your CDN nodes, which gives you the ability to do very, very fast things right next to the user who's requesting it. There's also a different capabilities in terms of like execution times and so on. We'll talk a little bit about that, but the detail doesn't matter here. It's the macro trend that we're looking at. So we've got this ability to do tiny bits of compute using JavaScript, or you can use other languages, but we'll stick with JavaScript because we're talking about the web experience. So you've got this ability to do like serverless things. The web experience is there. You've also got this other macro shift of, like, every single tool is moving to an API first approach. WordPress has gone headless. Drupal has gone headless. Most new tools get built headless, like Contentful, Sanity, etc. They don't even bother trying to give you a UI. They give you APIs that you then hook into whatever modern stack you want and build your own web experience for it. So that's the second macro shift, is API first economy, right? Now within that, there's subsets. There's the CMS style, there's the commerce style, etc. But really what you're getting into is a specialized tool for managing a certain type of data or a certain type of transaction in the case of like commerce. And you then get APIs to interact with that service on your web layer. And you can do that securely through serverless functions, or for things that don't need to be secure, you can do it through client-side JavaScript, like if you're just loading public data from the API. So that's the second shift. First shift is we have the ability to do work in serverless functions, edge functions, that lets us make things more dynamic. So now we don't have to do only precompiled assets. We can do dynamic things, but we still don't have to manage servers. We're just putting it all in Git, push to Git, it goes live. We've got all those dynamic capabilities. Second thing, blank as a service. Everything has gone API first. The whole economy is API driven. So now you go out, you choose your best in class tools, you assemble them together, you use your custom front end framework, and you build a great experience that is 90% powered by blank as a service or your own custom APIs, but it's still completely custom to your needs. You spend all your time building value instead of reinventing wheels that Shopify or Contentful or WordPress has already solved for you. You just get to build the part that's uniquely yours, that's uniquely valuable. Third macro shift then is what probably the piece that's the most exciting, which is the fact that databases are becoming front-end native. So databases have always been like the missing link in the way that people build for the web, because you can only go so far back before you run into a thing where you need a custom database. And when you need that custom database, you kind of lose your ability, or you did previously, you'd lose your ability to be just a front-end developer, because now you're a DB admin. You had to figure out how to provision it, even if that just meant like logging into AWS or Google Cloud and provisioning a Postgres database or something like that. Or you were using something like Firebase, which is more of a JavaScript SDK. Now it is a database, right? But it has like a whole ethos around it. You're buying into a full tool. It wasn't just like, here's a database and I would like to use this with whatever SDK I want. It was always kind of like, okay, you're going to go Firebase, you're all in on Firebase. So there's this new interesting movement where databases are starting to become serverless native. They're looking at the web development landscape and saying, oh, we should be in this serverless space. So you've got the PlanetScale is kind of serverless first. You've got Fauna, you've got Hasura, you've got all these different tools that solve different problems in different ways. But ultimately what they're trying to do is take databases and move them close to the people building the web experiences and to the users requesting those things. So 3 macro trends, right? Dynamic experiences are possible through a Git-based workflow with serverless and edge functions. We've got the whole world is moving to an API-first economy, and then we've got databases moving closer to the web experience, all of which results, again, in us as what would traditionally be called or front-end developers being the HTML, CSS, JavaScript experts, right? Those are the 3 things we know. Everybody's built toward us, and so now we are full stack because we don't have to build the backends. They're all built for us. The databases are managed by experts at PlanetScale, so we don't have to figure out how to scale or deploy or manage or roll back or all these things. They built those controls for us. We don't have to become server experts because Netlify has the Git-based workflow and the instant rollbacks and the global CDN and all the things that with the serverless deployment and all the DNS configuration, proxies, etc. All those pieces that previously would have required us to learn huge amounts of additional skill sets have all been now scoped down to where I need to understand what value I want to build. And the tools take care of all of the boilerplate that just needs to be done well. Right? So that's the magic of what we're up against here. And it opens up this whole new door for what we can do as developers. So that's kind of the ultra high end here of what of like why you shouldn't be stressed out about the landscape, I think. So don't feel FOMO. We've got some big macro trends. Those macro trends all are if you're aware of those, then as you're starting to solve problems, you can look into this specific macro trend and then start to kind of dig into whether or not it's something that you need to, like, do you need that tool? Do you have a pain point that brings us away from the tools you already have? If so, great. Lots of things to explore. If not, it's okay. We know what the macro trends are. We are meeting those needs. And, you know, if we find that we're not being served the way that we wanted to, lots of options out there, but not anything that you have to learn or else you'll go stagnant or anything like that. So, should we build something? Yes, we should. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to take a look at, this is a post that just went up on the PlanetScale blog about these serverless drivers for JavaScript. And I'm going in without any context here, by the way. So I believe Taylor and some folks from the PlanetScale team are in the chat. So hello, thank you. I hope I make you proud today. And what this does, the serverless driver for JavaScript, is extremely cool because What? Yes, yeah. Do we really need computers? Computers, I believe, were a mistake. All right. So here's what we're doing. We want to store and query data in PlanetScale from environments such as all these new edge environments that are out there, including Netlify Edge Functions, right? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And then we want this global routing and connection reliability and performance, which is also wonderful. So we want to get into this, and I'm just going to kind of dive in. I'm not going to read the whole post here, as developers tend to do, because I'm pretty sure down here there is, yes, there is indeed a whole setup. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to, let's just set up a Vite app, because they are nice and fast and we can see our changes really quickly. So I'm going to hit get started here. There is a npm create Vite. Right, so we're going to do that, and we're going to say, let's call this PlanetScale Serverless. What are we using today? Oh, you know what I wanted to do today, actually? I wanted to do this with Next.js, because I feel like a lot of people are going to be building apps with Next.js. So, so let's do that instead. So I'm going to go to the docs. We want to get to the create next app. Okay, and we're going to do this in PlanetScale Next.js Netlify Edge Functions, right? Nice compact repo name, but descriptive. And so we are installing Next, and that's going to get us into our piece here. All right, so let's go into it. PlanetScale. I'm going to, do we have git? I'm going to get init initialized. Yeah. All right. So here we go. There's our new setup. I'm going to open this up and let's poke around in here. So we've got the README. All right. We know how those, well, so we've got a nice, like, real basic, right? So public pages, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to come in here and we'll update this to say PlanetScale Serverless driver on Next.js plus Netlify Edge. Oops, Edge Functions. And then I'm going to copy this and we'll drop this in here. And then I'm going to just drop out kind of everything else. Leave our main, don't need a footer. We can just kind of start with a real basic piece here, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do with the rest of it. So we don't need the image. We can hold on to that module.css, but let's just go ahead and start this up. So I'm using the Netlify CLI. I'm going to run Netlify dev, and it's going to auto detect that I'm running Next.js. And then it'll fire up our local server here. And you can also see it's already loading an edge function for us, which is pretty dope. And now we've got our basic site running here. And let's see. Oh, Taylor's saying it's global routing of the connections, not the data yet. Good call out. Is it conceptually like Prisma? No. So this is actually going to be way different than Prisma, because Prisma is like an SDK that takes your database and then turns it into like a TypeScript auto-completion JavaScript SDK. PlanetScale is like how to get the database connection. So this would be maybe spiritually similar to something like Connects, if you've ever used that node module, except we get to use it in an edge function environment and a serverless function environment, which is really, really cool. So I want to go back to my code here. I'm gonna, let's see, let's take this and make it smaller. Let's take this, we'll move it over here, and I'm gonna make both of these short enough to actually show up on the window. Is that enough? It needs to be a little bit shorter, doesn't it? Got to actually figure out how to size my browser appropriately so that I don't have the bottom inch cut off in OBS. But anyways, that's a problem for another day. So what I want to do in here is I want to figure out how to actually get something set up. And so let's get into what we're going to start with, which is getting everything installed. So I'm going to start by installing the PlanetScale database. So we will run one of these. And then we're going to come down here and we have to actually set this up. Okay, so I need a database first. So let me get into my PlanetScale. I think I did this with GitHub. About to find out. Okay, so we've got some databases here. I'm going to create a new database and we're going to call this one. What do we want to do today? What do we want to store today, y'all? Let's store my favorite. Let's just call this one foods, right? We'll do a nice easy one and we can put it wherever we want. We've got all these different environments. We'll keep it in US East 1 for now. Let's create it. And so now we've got a database. We have a connect to your database. This is cool. So I'm going to have to roll this to change that because obviously I just doxed my database. Let me pull this off screen and actually get a real database password now that I need to delete that. Connections. Nope, that was the wrong button. Overview. Connect. Need to get a new password. There we go. Okay, so I have my new password. Now I'm going to save these in environment variables. So I'm going to just set up, let's actually just deploy the site because then we can use the environment variables on it, right? So I've got my general setup here. I'm going to git add all, then we've got our basic site. I'm going to git commit m and we'll say initial commit. Right, then we got that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to GitHub repo create, and we're going to push the existing local repo, that's this one, and we're going to say learn with JSON, and I want it, you know what, we're just going to copy paste. All right, we can leave that out. It's going to be a public repo. We do want to add the remote, we'll call it origin. Would I like to push? I would. And now if I come in here, oops, click this button. Now we've got our basic repo, right? So, so let's go back to here and actually finish reading this post. So I need to turn this on before I do the thing. Okay, so let me go back into my PlanetScale dashboard. Oh, which I've pulled off screen. Whoops. Okay, so I'm going to go to settings. All right, let me pull this back over actually. So we're going into settings, and then we have beta features. All right. And we've got this serverless driver. So I'm going to enroll. Good, good. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to my overview. And now I want to connect and I'm going to be able to hit this, this new password, right? So I'm going to go delete my previous passwords. Actually, I think I just go here and I'm like, get out of here, go away. Yeah. So get rid of those passwords. And then when I go back here, I'm going to be able to connect again, and that'll get me a new password, which I will then use. But so now that I've got this hooked up, what I can do is go into my Netlify app. I'm going to create a new site by importing an existing site. We'll go to GitHub. I don't need my Netlify authorization for this. So we will go to the Learn with Jason account and search for PlanetScale. I've got like a million repos in here, so it takes a minute. Here is our Edge Functions. All right. So I'm just gonna, so that it sees that it's a Next.js site. We know that that's gonna work. I'm going to deploy the site. And now I can, we can go into like our site details and let's change the site name. We want it to be, just make it the same so that it's easy for me to remember what I've done. No, it's too many. Okay, so we'll short it to Edge. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Then in here, we want to, I'm going to use something in our labs just to show everybody why this is going to look different for me. We have this scopes and deploy context for environment variables that's available in Netlify Labs. If you haven't tried this, it is amazing. So now that I've got that, when I come back to my accounts here, I can go to environment variables. We'll see this beta tag. And inside of it, let me make this bigger so that we can see the whole UI. We've got a whole like set of details here. So I'm going to opt into the new experience. We can add a variable. And this is really cool. So I'm going to go with PlanetScale, and I need a user name. And if we wanted to, which we could potentially do later, I'd be able to like put this together in different contexts. So like I could say in production, deploy previews, branch deploys, local dev, et cetera, we can also specify these certain branches. So lots and lots of control there. For today, because I don't want to get too bogged down, I'm going to leave it on all deploy contexts, but I am going to turn it off for all of these things because the only time that I want access to the database is in these functions. So basically, even if somebody tried to leak this in the build, now we can set it to where it wouldn't work. It won't be available. So you can't accidentally expose secrets if you create them like this. So then we've got a value and we're going to hide that value. Okay, so there's that value. This is my username, and I'm going to drop it in here, and I'm going to create that variable. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add another one. This is going to be for PlanetScale password. This is going to be for specific scopes. Keep it in the functions. And again, we're going to hide the value, and I'm going to get, if I can, there it is, get my password in there. So now I've got a PlanetScale database username and password in here. And that solves that problem. I think that's all we need. Let's go look. I'm going to need the host as well. And my host is... Where do I find my host? Connect with PlanetScale. I want to connect with PlanetScale database, which is dope. Okay, so, oh yeah, this is great. All right, so then, actually, let me show you all this because it's really cool. All right, so here I am, I'm back in. And what I've done is I went to, I'll just try this again. I went to the connect button up here, and then it shows me the PlanetScale CLI, but I want to look at all these pieces, and I can see the PlanetScale database, which is the serverless driver. And when I click this, it gives me all of my .env or my app.js or whatever it is that I need. And so I'm going to copy my host here, and I'm just going to put it into the environment variable so that I don't have to remember it. I can just like have it available. And we're going to call this host, and we'll put it in specific scopes again. And that one we don't need to keep secret, so I can just create the variable. Right, so now we've got the host, password, and username all available in our scope. And if I want to use this locally now, because we've got our setup, I can run Netlify link in here because we created the site. And I'm just going to use the current remote origin. I think this will just do it. If that doesn't work, I'll go in here and get the site ID because I have so many sites on Netlify. Okay. You know what? Rather than waiting for that, I'm just going to shortcut with what I know works. And I'm going to Netlify link and then use a site ID. And now I'm hooked up, right? So now when I run Netlify dev, because it's hooked up to a site, it's going to pull in my environment variables, right? Now, if I wanted these to be different based on my my scope, again, I can go into environment variables and I could do something like set it to be a different value for production, deploy previews, local dev, et cetera, et cetera. So in a real database, that is what I would do. I would set up a different version. And this is actually something that PlanetScale does really well, where they create different versions of different things. But yeah, really, really nice. So now that we've got our environment variables, we've got our dev environment where our edge functions are running, everything's doing what we want. So we can come in here and now we can actually try to get some data. And in order for me to get some data, we need to put some data into our database. I wonder if it's going to let me. So I'm going to have to make a deploy request. In order to make a deploy request, I'm going to have to get some data to put into it. So let's just go to the documentation real quick and get getting started. Let's get a workflow. Is there like a CLI overview where it just shows me how to like really quickly make a database? I feel like there probably is, right? Here's a quick start. There we go. That's what we need. So we're going to create a database, make a schema change, insert data, and promote your database to production. That's what we want to do. Let's fly through it pretty fast here. So I need to add a schema to my database. And I'm not going to do relational. We're just going to do straight up data because we're not talking about database design today. We are only going to worry about getting some data in so that we can query it out. So I'm going to create a table and let's design our schema here a little bit, and I'll do it as a file for anybody who wants to do this later. We'll create like db schema.sql, I think it is, so we can put this in here. I want to create a table food, and we'll give it an ID. That's good, and we'll give it a name. And you know what? That's going to be good enough because that's all we really need. I'm going to leave the products out. We don't need that. And let's then, oh, cool. We get a console right here. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to click on main, if I can find it, branches, main, promote a branch to production. Do I need to create, oh, console. Here it is. Okay, so here's my console. So I'm going to go back out here, copy my table, right? And then I'm going to run it. Ta-da! And then when I come into here and say show tables, we have a table. Okay, all right, nice and easy. Then we're gonna insert some values. So let's take this one and we're gonna come down here and say insert into food name. We're going to insert pizza, and then let's add a couple more here. We're gonna add smash burgers. Couple more. What are my favorite foods? What am I? Oh, chicken teriyaki. Nice, nice, nice. Let's put solid puns. Ooh, sushi. Yeah, I do love a good sushi, and I do love donuts. All right, so that's a good 4 items. We'll put those in, And let's go back to our console, and we're gonna just insert all of these things. Oh, does it not like my? Maybe I have to do them one at a time. Yes. Oops. So there's if I knew more about SQL, I could probably do this all in one command, but I'm not going to stress about it because I'm very good at copy pasting and I don't need to be good at SQL to make this work. So now I have some data in here and we can select all from food. Okay, so let's run that and see what we get. Ta-da! We got data, everybody. All right, so this is great. So now we can actually like pull some of this data out and use it. And that should be all we need, right? So now I can get into actually building a thing. And so I want to actually go and use this. So I'm gonna go up and look at the demo application because that's extremely cool. Okay. I need the GitHub repo though. So let's go and look at the examples. We've got a Netlify example, and I'm going to look into the Edge function here to see how this is done. And so something cool is going on. You see how this is called data.json.ts? There's something clever that they're doing here that I actually really like. So we can look at how this is being used in a second. But to start, I want to actually get this thing breathing. So let's go with, I'm going to come over here, shrink this on down. Let's save it. And I'm going to close that DB schema because we don't need it anymore. Now, what I do need is I need a new file. It's going to live in the Netlify folder and then the Edge Functions folder. And then we're going to call this one, I'm going to do the same thing actually, food.json.ts. And what I want to be able to do is get back our data. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the context from https edge.netlify.com. So if you've never seen this before, what we're doing right now is we are getting quick fix. Just no, don't do that. We are just downloading this from Dino, right? And so Dino lets us use URL imports, and then this isn't cached, so it's yelling at, oh, it's yelling at me because we never declared it. That's fine. So then what we do is we export default async function, we call it a handler. We're going to get the request, which will be a standard request object, so we don't need to import a type for that. This is all in TypeScript. And then we're going to get the context, which is a Netlify specific thing, and that's what we just imported the type for. So we can then go here. And then what I could do, actually, I don't know if we're going to need the request. So I'm going to skip that. We'll just leave it out. But what we do then want to do is, do we need the context either? I don't know if we need the context either. We don't need it. We don't need anything actually. So we can, I think we can just start with like nothing. Let's start with nothing and just get a good old hello world kind of thing going. So we're going to return a response. That response is going to be some JSON. So we'll get our JSON, and that's going to be JSON stringify, and we'll say like hello world, right? And then we will stringify that, send back a content type of application JSON. And then I like this idea of including the char set so that if we were to include, you know, a smart quote or something, it doesn't blow up the encoding. And then we can do an access control, allow origin of star. And this is for cores. That's going to give us, why are you yelling at me? Is not assignable to parameter of type. Oh, it needs to be headers. Okay, so now it's happy. But yeah, so this is pretty dang cool. So with Next.js, we could put this into middleware if we wanted. We have options either way, and it'll work no matter how we choose to do it, whether we want to do it in Next.js or in the kind of framework agnostic Netlify way. So for the sake of this, but what we can do actually is let's get this breathing, and then we've got like 45 minutes left. So maybe we can try to do it through the Next.js middleware as well and see what we can get. Well, actually, you know what? No, that won't work because Next middleware wouldn't let us return any data, I don't think. Let's go, it's down in here somewhere. Where's their middleware? So the middleware run code before a request is completed, and you can either rewrite, redirect, add a header, or set a cookie. So I guess we could put it into cookies, but like we couldn't rewrite the response or anything to put the data in, which we could actually do here. Actually, that might be a fun thing to try, would be to choose a food from. Let's do that actually. Okay, so we won't be able to do this with middleware because middleware doesn't have enough features, but we will be able to do something using the Netlify Edge Functions that kind of adds additional capabilities to those features. So let's get back in here. We've got, so this is our hello world, right? And then in order to use this, we got to create a netlify.toml. And then inside of it, I'm going to go back to our PlanetScale data here. And if we look at the netlify.toml, you can see here what they've done is they've basically set up one edge function, and it's going to look for data.json, or in our case, food.json. And we can call this whatever we want. It doesn't need to be the same name. It's just for the sake of not confusing yourself later. It's nice to have some correlation between your edge functions naming and your pathing. And then we can say food.json, and we get to omit the suffix. So no file name required. All right, so we've got that. And then this is going to have to get stopped and restarted because we added a netlify.toml. Okay, and so this time, what did it look like? No middleware found. It doesn't need any middleware. That's okay. And it loaded our food.json. So then let's go to food.json, and we get back our hello world, right? So this, whoops. This is kind of the really exciting part about this, is that we were just able to very quickly kind of build a custom route. And so you could do this with a serverless function. But the thing that's interesting about this is that the serverless function would execute kind of at the data center, whereas the edge function will execute next to the user. So if you go to load this loads in milliseconds, right? It's not, you're looking at an extremely short turnaround between requesting this and actually getting the response back, no matter where you are in the world, because it runs at the CDN edge, which is really, really exciting. So the next thing we want to do is let's actually get the PlanetScale stuff in here. So I'm going to go back, look into this edge function, and now what I need is I'm going to import this this connection string here. And this is going to be, we're using unpackaged, so it pulls in the app PlanetScale database. You may have also seen, if you're paying attention to Dino news, which, you know, you don't have to be, don't feel bad if you weren't paying attention to this, but Dino is going to support Node.js. Let's see, it is going to, like, interoperability. There was a whole thing about this where they were going to introduce node compatibility mode. Pretty sure you can just like import node packages now. Yeah, check this out. You can do like a node thing. So you also don't have to use the URL thing if you don't want to. Not a necessity, but yeah, those are going to be pretty dope. And so let me look. I see Mayank has just posted up a link, so let me take a look at this. And Edge API routes, the Edge runtime. Does that mean we can do anything? Build high performance APIs? Seems like that maybe does what we want. High performance. Can you do... Okay. Okay, so actually this might work. This might work. So yeah, we can maybe play with that. Let's get this breathing though. So we've got our connection string here, and we want, where was it? Oh no, I'm in the wrong. Am I in the right place? Here we go. All right. So we just connect, and then the config is to get our host username and password, and then we run this connect config. So let's look at how it's done in Dino. So we've got, again, here's our set. Oh, and you can just run the whole URL, which is interesting, which we are not going to do, I don't think. And instead, we will use the username. Oh, does that not work? Oh, crap. Do I need to get a different... Wait a minute. Host username password. So if I go in with a host and I say Dino and no .env .get and I say PlanetScale host, right? And I do username password, and we go in here, we do username, not in SpongeBob caps, and then we do a password, and then we get one of these. What are you unhappy about? Cannot find the name Dino. I feel like I might need to install something to get Dino happy in VS Code. Oh yeah, what's the... There's a helper for this actually. Let me... I think it's called like templates or something. I want recipes. I think this is it. Netlify recipes. We can list them all. And that's what I want. So we run Netlify recipes VS Code. And this should give me like the configuration that I need for Dino to be happier. Has no await. We will await. We shall. Oh, you're just unhappy about everything now, huh? Okay, so so now that I have my connection string, I can go in here and we can do a connection.execute. So const, oh, you can just do multiple at once. Okay, so I'm just gonna do a food is gonna be await connect or con dot execute, and we're going to feed it select all from food. All right. What are you unhappy about? Query. Yes. What don't you like? Expected 2 arguments, but got 1. And if I don't have an argument, can I just pass an empty? Yeah. Okay. And then here, we're going to JSON stringify food. So let's just try that and see what happens. Oops, what am I doing? I just want Netlify dev. Okay, there we go. And now if I go back to, is it, oh, one of these, not you, this one. We get back our food, our data. And so this is our rows. So we need to get into the rows. So instead of doing food like that, let's get response, and then food will be response dot rows, response dot rows. Okay, try again. There. All right, so now we've got our food items coming back from an edge function, and it's coming back in a way that looks like JSON, and it's being sent with the right headers to be interpreted as JSON. So if I go and look at this, as far as the browser is concerned, we just got back JSON data. And so it doesn't care that this was done by an edge function or whatever. It just thinks, here's a file called food.json. And that means that for us, we have a lot of capabilities here where we could do something like, let's say that we wanted to only bring in, like, I don't know, let's do a mains would be food.filter, and we can get the food item and say, food.name does not equal donuts, right? And then we would return our mains. What are you unhappy about? Yeah, I know it's got an any type because I'm hacking. What don't you like? Boo. Now you explicitly have an any type. Yeah, try to get mad. And there we go. Now we've got this filtered list, right? So if we only wanted mains and not desserts, we could do it like that. But we do want all of it, so we will skip that part. And now we've got databases. Now what are you mad about? Oh, it just needed to reload. So now we've got a database running at the edge. Like, how freaking cool is that we now have this capability? And to show you how easy this is to deploy, we can just make sure that I'm not adding anything that we don't want to add. We've got a lock file, that's fine. We've got our edge function, we've got our .toml, we've got our DB schema, so if anybody wants to try that, and then we've got this VS Code settings, which will keep the project running the way we want. Cool. All right, good. So we're going to git commit and say, get DB running at the edge. Okay, so let's push. And now out here, we go to our deploys. It's building. And while we're waiting for it to build, in fact, why don't we ready to start? Why aren't you starting? Have y'all noticed that the internet has been weird the last few days? Like, I was having trouble on like Twitter earlier, wasn't loading things, and then my email was janky. People haven't been able to get into Zoom calls today. Just feels like the internet has been like, oof. That whole internet thing. Maybe it was a mistake. All right, here we go. The internet is always weird. That's fair. But so, okay, we are running our build. Off we go. Static pages. All the custom routes. Get our functions out there. Get our edge functions out there. And the cache getting deployed. So then we end up with, all right, there's our site. So if we come back out here, you done? There we go. Now it's live. Just had to look at it. Oh yeah, internet's definitely being weird. Ooh, it's a fun thing to see on stream. Okay, so here's our running site, and if I go to food.json, we are making live queries to a database at the freaking edge, y'all. So here's what's cool about this, right? Actually, let me go into an incognito window to try this so that none of my browser extensions affect this. But like, check this out. We are making these requests and they take like no time. You know, we're at 111 milliseconds. And like, it's very, very nice to see how quickly these run. And like, y'all should check this out too. Like, go and hit this and try it. Cause it's just very like, yeah. Okay. American 2050 has a good question. What's the point of separating between serverless and edge? Why not have hosts just automatically treat all serverless as edge if there's no cons on using them? The major difference is that the primary use case of edge functions is like you want to be able to make a choice, because if all of your data is back with the if all your data is back at US East 1 and you have a heavy read write operation, right? So you're using, let's say, Postgres on AWS, and you need to run a serverless function that's going to read something from the database, take some user input, make some changes, and then write back to the database. If you are using an edge function, you're actually doing a full hop between the user's edge node and US East 1 for each one of those writes, which will actually make the whole thing slower. So if you know that your data is geolocated, then you want your serverless function to be in that same data center or near it, because then what happens is you get those really, really fast, like your database is in US East 1, your serverless function is US East 1. So it's like 5 to 10 milliseconds for them to talk back and forth to each other, and then you only have that one hop with the response. Whereas if you're doing something like what PlanetScale has done here, where you have the ability to do like portals where you can put your database read access around in different places on the globe, then you would theoretically want your edge function and your database access, because they're both at the edge, you can put them there because then they're nice and fast. A lot of what we end up doing is we actually want to do, say, like transformations where you can do like HTML rewrites or, you know, other kind of transformations on this software, where I want to be able to make like intercept the request and then do something to it. That's kind of the primary use case for edge functions, is more of the I need to check what the headers say and make a slight adjustment, or I want to check the geolocation and make a slight adjustment. And so that ends up being a really strong use case for edge functions, whereas serverless functions are kind of more like, I need a little bit of server functionality. A lot of times that's going to be coupled with a platform as a service, database as a service, software as a service that has some component that's probably geo-bound, because the vast majority of services have their primary location is going to be at one of the main data centers. And, you know, let's be honest, it's almost always US East 1. So if you know that you're working with one of those services, then putting your serverless function in US East 1 is going to give you a really, really fast processing time. So it's going to be about trade-offs. What are you doing? What is the intent? Is it better for that? Is it faster for that to be near your user or near the data that the user is accessing? And as we're seeing with tools like PlanetScale, we're not having to make that trade-off as often. And so I think in the future, to answer your question more succinctly, in the future, we won't differentiate because we'll be able to just make those calls intelligently. But for now, you have to kind of weigh the impact of how you would be traversing the network to get something done. So let's see. If I change my host to AWS Connect, ooh, okay, we got bonus tips coming in here. So I'm gonna change my host, and let me pull this over to the side so that we still got it for testing. I'm going to go to my site settings and environment variables, and then let's update this. I want to edit it, and this is the host, right? Okay, so right now it's US East. I'm gonna do this this broader one. Let's give it a shot. Okay, and then we're gonna come back out here, and let's trigger a deploy to get those new environment variables out there. And now we watch it build, and I dance. Okay, so this will take a minute. I want to look and see if there's anything else we should play with here. Taylor, you're in the chat. Is there anything that I should look at that we're not currently, that we haven't tried yet? I think you got that command backwards, Jacob. I think it's please hold. Okay, so that's built. And now let's give it another run. Looks like the times are about the same for me, but that's not super surprising. But yeah, around 100 milliseconds. And yeah, you know, you can do all sorts of cool stuff. Yeah, but yes, I think what Taylor's saying is like, we can use relational databases in Edge functions now, which was absolutely not really the case before. So this is freaking cool. And you can just kind of see that like, this is not the sort of thing that we were able to do previously. Like we would have had to do all sorts of specialty stuff and you know, get into some mess and like it would have been hard, right? It would have required more than I probably would have been willing to deal with. So I would have just said, you know what, we're not ready for that yet. But now I don't have to make that trade-off. I don't have to know things. I just have to use this. And that I think is sort of the joy and power of a lot of this stuff. But yeah, what a really, really powerful thing to do. So we've got about 20 minutes left, and I want to see if we can actually use this data to modify the homepage. And so to who was it, Mayank, that was sharing the Edge functions or the middleware stuff. So I want to do more on that later. I actually kind of want to dig in and do a whole thing on Next.js middleware. We'll schedule that. We'll do a whole new episode on Next.js middleware because I have a lot of cool things that it can do, a lot of things that we want to experiment with, and we won't have time to do that in 20 minutes. So, yeah, Danush, it's this stream has changed a lot, right? Like it's evolved. Is that evolved feels like the charitable way to describe the stream. Yeah, it's evolved. Okay, so here's what I want to do. I want to come out here and I'm going to say Jason's favorite food is, and I'm going to say something gross. What is something gross? We're gonna, and I'm gonna do it with like something like this, like food. And we'll say a sous vide burger. Gross. Hi, Sarah. And so what I want to do is we can just come in here and mess with this a little bit. How does this look on the home page? If I go back to my home page, let's run a Netlify dev. Durian. Yeah, that is actually pretty terrible. Okay, so here we've got this little piece. I want to update this on the fly at the edge to choose one of these other foods. And so the way that I'm going to do that is let's write a new function. And I'm going to, we'll call this one, let's see, correct food choices.ts. And I'm going to drop this in here. And with this one, we're going to do a little bit more. So I still don't need the request, but it needs to be declared. So this underscore leading causes the linting to not yell at me. And then I'm going to get this context, and I need to get that context from import. We can do the type context. Whoops. From HTTPS, and it's edge.netlify.com. I hope that was right. Let me go double check. Here. Edge.netlify.com. That is right. Okay, so I've got my context coming in from edge.netlify.com, and I can now change the way that things are going to work a little bit. So what I want to do is I actually want to get the response, and then I'm going to do an HTML rewriter check on it. And so I'm going to use a cheat sheet because we're a little short on time, and I don't want to find myself in that situation where we don't get the thing done. So I'm going to look at json.af here because I've built one of these. So on my site right now, if you go to the uses page, so that's this one. If you go to this uses page, a few of these, like this ArcScan, is listed on Amazon.com. So if you are not in the US and you go to this page and you hover over the more details of the ArcScan, it should localize to your local Amazon TLD. And that's through a rewriter. So what I'm going to do is just kind of follow the model here of getting this rewriter. And then I'm going to skip down to the part that I actually need. I need the response. And so the way that this works is in here, we get the response is going to be from awaiting context.next. And the way that that works is like, if you think about, if you've ever used Express, you might know what like a next function does. It's sort of like you're putting links in a chain, right? And so when you make a request to a website that has edge functions, I make a request, and what I'm requesting is a web page. But before I get to that web page, the edge function will get the request that I've made, and it can see, you know, what are the headers that I sent, what did I send any cookies along, and then I can make choices as the edge function developer to say, you don't have an authorization cookie, so I'm going to redirect you somewhere else, or to say, like, hey, you requested this page, but I want to change what it does. So when I run this context.next, I'm getting the response, like what's going to be sent back to the user, and storing it in this variable, which means that I can do some really, really cool stuff. So instead of returning a response like this, I can return an HTML rewriter, and that is going to let me look for a certain query selector. And so what I'm going to select is our food, right? And then what I want to do, I actually am now worried that this isn't going to work because we would need to transform both the JSON of this, because Next is going to send page props. So this is going to require something a little bit more intense, but let's try it and see what happens. And so on the element, we're going to get an element, and then inside of that, I can do something like element dot, is it replace? I think so. Replace. I think that's the one that's gonna, yeah, it's gonna replace the food. And you know what? That's not actually what I want to do, because I want to just change the entire contents. And I'm going to set inner content to be, for now, let's just set it to be any one of the foods, and we'll just make it the name, because that'll prove whether or not the thing we want to happen is happening. And then to actually make this run, because we're not doing it yet, we have to transform on the response, right? Oh, and I have too many duplicate things. So I've got my data, and then I've got the actual HTTP response, and this is going to correct our food choices. Amazon.be might not exist, actually. Where is... Did I close this? I don't know. I must have closed. Oh, no, here it is. No, Belgium, it doesn't look like. These are the... If you're not in one of these countries, it won't localize for you. But, okay. So, let's give this a shot. Let's see what happens. I need to do something with this. So this is built, but we haven't told it where to run. So I'm going to run it on Edge Functions. And for now, let's just run it on the home page. And like I said, I think this might not do what I want because it's not going to get the JSON sent by Next.js. Because that is a challenging thing to update. We would need to... Func.function is not a function. It is a function. Did I screw something up? Export default async function handler. I did the thing. It's not a function. You are a function. Don't you lie to me. Does it show me which one failed? No. Okay, so I'm going to stop and restart just in case I did something wrong here. I'm sure I've typoed something, and I just don't know what it is. Text content, yeah, so this is the piece I was worried about. So the text content does not match server rendered HTML, and that text content lives in like next data. So what I could look at, page props, page query, true. How does one replace these things? Maybe I can do it if I try to replace everywhere. Let's just see. Let's try everything and see if that'll work. My guess is it won't. Oh, you can't do it like that. Gotta do one of those. And that killed it, so we'll start it again. Path must be a valid path, so you can't just give it a star. You got to give it a /star. Okay. And it, yeah, gotta do that that replacement in the whole thing. So this is that hydration stuff. This is where like SSR gets really hard. Is like you want to do something like this, and now we get to figure out how Next.js works, and like try to untangle that, figure out where the hydration is happening and stuff like that. So it just kind of makes for a fairly challenging fairly challenging process. So what we'll do instead is let's build ourselves a quick public, and we're going to go with a foods.html, right? Because with this, we can do basically the same thing, but I can put it, let's get this one, and come out to foods, drop it in here, and all of these become class, and then these aren't going to actually have styles, so we can just, I guess, just leave them out. Let's, goodbye, and we'll leave food. Okay, so then if we come out here, do one of these, bada bing, bada, oops. Okay, how about you? And then if I go to food.html, it didn't show up because I didn't copy it or because Next took over. Oh, it doesn't. It's going to fight me on any public pages. Yikes. Okay. Well, that's a bummer. Well, that's no fun. Thought we'd be able to do something fun, but Next has other ideas. Well, why don't you work? Does the favicon work? Yeah, that works. Do I need to like explicitly... render HTML page? I just want to like have a plain old HTML page. Place it in your public folder. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Can I... Oof. You know what? Whatever. We got 5 minutes. Let's make it happen. So we're going to create an API. We will... Let's just update this one. And we're going to get the file name of foods. Then we will go into the next config. And we're going to do a rewrites. And just hope that works. Foods. And the destination is going to be hello. And assuming that works, restart the server. Theoretically, we'll get our food. No. What are you doing? Fast refresh, had to perform a full reload. Oh, it's foods? Foods. I'm going to the wrong page. Oh no. Would this have just worked if I'd done it right from the get-go? Experiment. Whoops. Test.html. Hi. Let's go to test.html. Okay, so that would have worked. I didn't need any of that stuff. Okay, that is going to go down to user error because I am a doofus. So let's get this out of there. Let's get this out of there. We don't need it. And go back here. Reload. We're going to go back here. And look at that. Look at that. It worked. Okay. So this is really cool. So so let me fix the markup part. Right? Okay, so it's replacing sous vide with another food, and then if we come in here and add another one, we can do like a let's random index, and we'll do a like math dot floor of math dot random times food dot length, and that should give us a pseudo random index at least. And then when we come in here, once it reloads, there you are, we'll get a different favorite food every time we reload the page. So let's add a little linky, and this is going to yell because let's see, it's like that. href food.html, see my favorite foods. Is that going to work? You're good? You're good? You're good? Okay, so let's go to here. Right? There's our link. What? Why did you not work before and you work now? Don't be like this. Be better than this. No, it's foods. Oh my goodness gracious. What have I done? Oh, jeez. Okay. I'm a doofus. All right, here we go. All right, see? Check that out. All right, so let's commit it. Get add all. We're going to get commit, and let's get this thing live. And we're going to say dynamic. We're going to call this personalization from PlanetScale using Edge Functions. Bam. Okay, so we'll take that live. JavaScript dragon. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Nobody, just don't tell anybody I did that. Okay. So we can come back up here. We can look at our deploys. This is automatically building because we pushed. And while we are looking at that, I'm going to do a quick round of shout outs. Thank you again to Rachel from White Coat Captioning, who has been doing the live captioning all day today. Thank you for being here. That's made possible by our sponsors, Netlify, NX, New Relic, all kicking in to make the show more accessible to more people, which I really do appreciate. While you're checking out things on the site, make sure you go and look at the schedule. Oh, I have a thing. Good reminder, Taylor. Thank you very much. For everybody who is watching, we have big old bonuses for everybody. I have a link for free hat. So the first 10 people, I'm going to say this before I share the link. The first 10 people who open up and fill this link out are going to get a free hat. So this is the link. That is going to be your hat. So click now, go get a hat. And if you are not one of the first 10 people to do so, I apologize, but them's the breaks. Anyways, go get a hat. I'm not going to claim a hat so that y'all can have one of these hats. But they're very fun. I love you get the dad cap thing going on. Always good, adjustable. So if you got a big old noggin like mine, it'll still fit your head. And yeah, make sure you go add the schedule on Google Calendar and follow on Twitch. You can subscribe on YouTube. Any of those things both feed my ego and guarantee that you will be notified of new episodes of Learn with Jason, which I think I consider that a win-win. So if we then go back out here to our live site, which is where's our live site? Is it this one? Here it is. Okay. So then we can come back out here. Here is our deployed site. We go to our favorite foods. And again, there are those dynamically loading from a database favorite foods right there on the old interwebs. Amazing. So y'all, thank you so much for hanging out. Make sure to go check out the demo here. Remember, you can find all of the source code for what we built today on GitHub right here as well. Make sure that you go check out this PlanetScale stuff. It's very cool. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to like about this, and you are, I hope, going to feel like a real capable web developer, right? Like, again, we're not front end anymore. We're full stack, right? It's a whole web experience. You can build a lot. You're capable of a lot. I am very excited to see what y'all are able to go out and build when you use this, and you're going to look great doing it in your brand new hat. So thanks, y'all. We will see you all next time.